this next section is just a very brief video here on transport within a cell. Because transport also happens within the cell itself, not just across the membrane. So when we have things inside of the cell, we often make them in one area and we need to move them to another place. So how do we accomplish that? Most of the time in cells we use organelles that are made of membranes, things like the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi apparatus. So we're going to take a little bit closer look at these two cell organelles. When we are talking about the endoplasmic reticulum, we usually refer to that as ER, and we actually have two types. We have the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and this is the membrane that has ribosomes on the outside. The proteins that we make within the cell are made at the ribosome, and then they can get transported through the cell in the endoplasmic reticulum. Now, not all ribosomes are located here, but a lot of them are, because we usually have to take that protein and do something else with it before we can actually use it. The other type of ER is the smooth ER. This is the membrane that has no ribosomes in it. I kind of think of this as like the superhighway. It's going to make and transport lipids as well as carbohydrates. So the rough ER is basically like the protein-only lane, and then the smooth ER is the lipid and carbohydrate-only lane. Now, the Golgi apparatus is responsible for processing and packaging materials for transport within the cell as well as outside of the cell. It's what's responsible for creating vesicles that we use for the process of exocytosis. Now, we also mentioned when we talked about transport that multicellular organisms also have to transport within themselves as well. So when we're talking about multicellular transport, we create things in one area, let's say of our bodies, and we have to move them to another. A great example of this is hormones. Many of our hormones are actually made in the brain by our pituitary gland, but they don't operate there. If you think of things like estrogen and testosterone, they're made up in the brain. We know that those hormones don't act up in the brain. Okay, well, maybe they do a little bit, but their actual function is somewhere else in the body. So how do we accomplish this? Well, the circulatory system allows these hormones to move throughout the body, and so basically it's almost like the endoplasmic reticulum of the cell. So the cell has its own like circulatory system with the endoplasmic reticulum.